So a theme I always talk about is optimism. I said this before the break. When you're a sports team, giving optimism, giving hope to your fan base, it's hard to say it's an obligation because it's a business, but it's what I would prefer. I always say you could be bad and exciting, but don't be bad and boring. Like, don't give people a reason to just literally want to, especially people that go live to games, don't give them a reason to just want to leave 10, 20 minutes before the game's even over. I bring up the Broncos in this a lot. It's rough when you can't score and it's your team is not just bad, but they're boring. Like that Colts Broncos game from a few years ago, I was on vacation and that shit damn near ruined my whole vacation. 9-9 in overtime, like it was just awful. One of the worst football games you could ever watch, right? So I'm a big believer in just be optimistic. Give your fans something to believe in. Rookies do this very well. And in the NFL, rookies do this incredibly fast, especially rookie quarterbacks. It's in the NBA, you could have an outstanding rookie. Rookie of the year, a guy who's a generational prospect. LeBron still had a losing record as a rookie. Wembayama only won 22 games with the Spurs as a rookie. Like, it's just harder to translate that from great rookie to immediate success. There's very few examples. Like, Melo's one of the only examples in NBA history, but if you look at the Nuggets roster, the year Melo was there versus the year before, there was other changeover and stuff, but it's really hard to do in the NBA. And in baseball, it's almost impossible because a guy gets drafted and he goes into the minors. So, like, even if you have a Jackson Holiday and he's great, he's not going to see the bigs or be a part of your major league team rotation for some years. But in the NFL, if you hit on a quarterback, you can flip a franchise around like that. The Texans are a good example. 2 years ago, the Texans no one wanted to be a Texans fan, right? If you had told people you were a Texans fan, they look at you side-eyed, like, what kind of life choices are you making? Now, DeMeco Ryans, CJ Stroud, the Texans are, in the span of 18 months, went from, why are you a fan of that team, to CJ Stroud is now the standard for rookie quarterbacks. Got to the playoffs, won a playoff game, all as a rookie. The Texans totally transformed themselves. And that kind of optimism and that kind of hope is super important when you're talking about professional sports. Like, fans, whether you want to admit it or not, we live and die on that shit. We don't want to see a boring professional sports team that also sucks. It's the worst feeling in the world. So the NFL's obviously has multiple rookie quarterbacks. There's 6 drafted in the first 12 picks, and they all bring a different level of optimism, and I think that optimism was capitalized in preseason over the weekend. It's only one game, and I'm not here to come on and overreact to one game. The Bears technically have played 2, but Caleb didn't play in the first one, so we can ignore it. But everybody showed, I think all 6 rookie quarterbacks, like the first part, none of them looks terrible. That would have been awful. That's the worst way you could start as a rookie quarterback, even if it is preseason, when just your first time. Everybody really gets to see you. Like, yes, there's people that go to the practices and watch them when they're with pads or without pads. But the first time everybody really gets to see you is preseason week 1. And if you go in there and you stink it up, you're horrible, it just sets everybody back. Because then you lose a lot of that momentum that you gained from being a top pick in the draft, people being excited about you, people thinking about, man, what could they do? And all that month of buildup. And then you come out there and it's just, you're awful on day 1, kill a lot of that momentum, right? And so none of them looked awful. And I think everybody kind of fit in where they were supposed to fit in, including Michael Penix, who probably has the least chance to play this year. But if you go down the list, Caleb Williams, he only played the one series, put up the 70 yards, but he looked as advertised. Because even though we talked about the Bears fans having certain expectations and the media as a whole about the Bears having certain expectations, Caleb did the flashy stuff. He did the stuff, the flip to the running back, the throws on the run. He did the stuff and showed you, even in only that one series, you could just look at him and go, oh yeah, he's special. And that's going to translate from college to the pros. Yes, there's other things. If you really, again, if you want to get sports nerdy about it and you want to break down, how he was reading the defense, time in the pocket, his feet, all that other kind of stuff, excuse me, you could do that. But we don't care about that right now. He got one series and he showed off special almost immediately. So if you're a Bears fan, you get the optimism that you've had since you pretty much, the optimism really for him before you even knew you were going to get him, when you just confirmed having them an overall pick because Carolina was so horrible, to actually drafting him, to seeing all the highlights that came out of training camp, and now the first time on a field around other professional athletes, you saw special. That was perfect. That's exactly what you want to do if you're Caleb Williams. Go down the list. Jaden Daniels, same thing. If you're Washington, and Washington we've talked about, total reboot. New owner, new coach, new executives, everything's brand new. They just took everything out and said, hey, look, this is who we are going forward. Jaden Daniels, he has the big throw down the sideline, which supposedly the story is he was able to audible out of. He had the touchdown run. He looked as advertised. The arm is special. He obviously can move. He's an athlete. And he had the instincts to be able to read the defense, audible to another play. He looked as like the optimism and the hope you wanted as a Washington fan. You got that. Yes, again, only one series. You'll see more of them obviously you'll see more of both of them obviously in games 2 and 3. But that optimism, that ability to show your fans, hey, look, we chose the right guy. That matters. Drake May probably had the least optimistic part. Not a lot of throws, not any of the huge wow plays that the first two guys made, but still, he didn't look bad. Not going to come on here and say he looked bad. So, and you know, him being the most project-like out of all the quarterbacks, especially because these three were in clearly a different talent bracket than the other three guys we're going to talk about. Excuse me. That you know he's going to be somewhat of a project. But he didn't look terrible. He looked like he understood what was going on. The game didn't look overly fast to him. He wasn't panicking. He wasn't freaking out. Like, again, not going to say it was a great debut, and I'm not even going to say he looked as good as the other two, who showed off clear signs of special. But you didn't totally crush the optimism, and you know that he is a project player. Shout out to the Pats fan who called in and said they should release him. You got to love when people can do open calls on radio shows. Go down the list. Michael Penix looked solid. He looked like he was in control. He looked like a guy, and this is what I love about these next three that we're going to talk about. The next three, from a talent standpoint, Penix, McCarthy, and Nix are in a different talent bracket than the other three. And so what their teams did, and I thought this was really smart, because if you will look at the history of quarterbacks, especially rookie quarterbacks, in the preseason, they don't throw a lot of passes. And some of that is to help with their confidence, meaning because if you're a coach and you're not sure your guy has really figured it out yet, you're not trying to sit there and give him more than what he can handle and totally shoot his confidence, and you're not trying to display that to everybody that, ooh, maybe we didn't get the right guy. Maybe we did fuck up that pick. But these three, who were a lot of college starts, we've heard all the stats, and they are considered to be more rhythm and system style players. So Penix got a lot of attempts, McCarthy got a lot of attempts, and Nix got a lot of attempts. And that let them show this is what they do well. You put them in the system, you give them ample opportunities. They're not going to give you, they can't go like Caleb Williams in only 5 or 6 plays and get you 70 yards and show you these 2 or 3 special moments in that short amount of time. They're just flat out not talented enough to do that. That's why he was number 1 overall pick, and that's why they weren't. But Penix being able to sit there in the pocket, the throws looked good. He looked confident. He was staring, like he wasn't just staring down guys. Yes, these are all very vanilla defenses. Again, if you want to get into the sports nerdy side of it, I'm not here to compare how he handled cover 2 versus a drop 3 or any of that stuff. But he looked confident. He looked composed. He looked like a NFL quarterback. Now, it's unfortunate for him because he probably has the least chance to play out of anybody because no one knows what the hell Atlanta's doing. But he looked like he delivered on, if he's the guy in 2 or 3 years and he still looks as good and he's even better, he's going to justify that 8th overall pick, even if it looks weird in the moment. Go on to the next guy, J.J. McCarthy. Same thing here. 2 touchdowns. He probably looked the best in comparison because McCarthy's one of those guys who he feels like a critic versus fan review. Like when you get a movie or a restaurant, there's the critics come out and the critics will either love a place or they'll totally blast it, or they'll love a movie or they'll totally blast it. And fans, regular, casual people who are spending the money to go eat here or go watch this movie, they'd be like, oh, I love that. Netflix is full of those. Netflix is full of movies that critics said, this isn't that good. This is a problem. This is a problem. This, that, and the third. And fans are like, yeah, but I liked it. Like, I'm not a critic. I don't know how to view it or analyze it as a critic, but I liked that movie. I enjoyed what I just spent my money on, or I enjoyed what I just watched on Netflix. And I feel like a lot of critics were saying McCarthy could be this, that, and the third, and that's where all of his draft stock and his hype was around. And the average fan was looking at it like, but Jim Harbaugh in Michigan just didn't trust him to pass. Like, why should we think, I haven't seen this special. He feels like a Michigan system quarterback, and they won a game without him throwing a pass. Like, to the fans' eye, wasn't that spectacular. I think this game, to the fans' eye, he was absolutely convincing as a solid NFL quarterback, a guy who understood what was going on, could make throws, could make reads. He finally turned that on for the fans. And that's, again, we're focused on optimism. We are focused on the potential, because that's all these guys are at the moment. They are a bunch of optimism, a bunch of potential. And then my guy, Bo Nix, I got $40 on him for this year. 15-21, touchdown. He looked like a guy who, it's what they considered Bo Nix to be, a system quarterback. And if that you believe in Sean Payton and Sean Payton believed in him, that this could be a match. A guy who's going to get the ball out of his hands very quickly. He's not going to sit there and take sacks, which drove everybody nuts last year with Russ, is that Russ held onto the ball, took a bunch of sacks. He's getting the ball out. He's staying on script. Yes. Are you going to always be able to stay on script? No. And that will be his first test of how can you improvise. But he made a couple throws on the run, some design. He ran the ball a couple times. He looked like Sean basically said, hey, look, this is my guy. This is what I think he can do. Let me show you a base level of that. And obviously, as they get longer into the year, they have more time together, he will continue to improve and add on to that. But everybody, all six of them, in my opinion, Drake May is probably a little iffy if you're going to say out of any of them. All six of them delivered on the optimism and the hope for all of their fan bases. The top end guys showed you they are talented, they are special, they can do these things that regular human beings and even other professional athletes simply cannot do. And the other three guys at the bottom showed you they can step in, they can make the throws, they can play in the system in which they were drafted. Like, there was a lot to like, I think, about preseason week 1. And everyone's going to tell you don't take too much from week 1, and you shouldn't. That's totally valid. But the signs there, again, fans don't know that much. Fan is short for fanatic. We're all crazy. We all sit there and make up 1,000 scenarios. There's a million fans in the world. I'm not even exaggerating. There's probably 10 million plus fans in the world who think their team is winning the Super Bowl. And they're not Kansas City fans. And they're all delusional. That's the reality of being a fan. We are all delusional. We're all crazy. We all think our team is going to be better than we all think the experts are wrong. We all think the insiders are wrong. We think our team is going to go, when they show you the schedule breakdowns and they show you like, oh, well, this team, I think, fan looks at the schedule breakdown and goes, I really think we could win like 12 or 13 of these. And then the season actually plays out and your favorite team is 4-12. And you're like, oh, okay. So again, we are hitting on the optimistic part of this. And I think all 6 quarterbacks knocked it out the park. Five out of the 6 knocked out of the park. I don't think Drake May dropped the ball.